perfect, a scene out of a fairy tale. Emily and James's engagement party sparkled with joy, love filling the air. As they shared a kiss under twinkling lights, Emily felt her future was bright, but a nagging thought about James's evasiveness regarding his grandmother lingered. Wedding preparations were in full swing, but James's reluctance to involve his grandmother troubled Emily. Driven by curiosity, she visited the grandmother's rundown home, discovering she was neglected and heartbroken. Confronting James, Emily learned of his cruel indifference. Her world shattered. Emily called off the wedding. In the end, she found solace in caring for the grandmother, forming an unexpected bond. They found happiness together, proving that compassion can lead to new beginnings. What would you do if you discovered a dark secret about someone you loved? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more incredible stories. Hello my friends, I hope all you are fine. This is Narrative Stories channel. Let's start this story. The night was perfect, a scene straight out of a fairy tale. The elegant ballroom was decorated with twinkling fairy lights, soft music played in the background, and the air was filled with laughter and joy. Emily, in a stunning red dress, floated from guest to guest, her radiant smile lighting up the room. James, looking dashing in his tailored suit, stayed close by her side, his arm around her waist. The love between them was palpable, and everyone could see it. As the evening progressed, the couple shared a kiss under the glow of the chandeliers, a moment captured by their friends and family, who cheered and applauded. To Emily and James, the perfect couple, someone toasted, and the room echoed with clinking glasses and heartfelt congratulations. Emily's heart was full. She believed she had found her soulmate, the man she would spend the rest of her life with. Little did she know, a shocking discovery was just around the corner, one that would turn her world upside down. The couple moved through the room, receiving warm wishes and hugs from loved ones. Emily's best friend, Sarah, pulled her aside, beaming. "I'm so happy for you, Emily. James is a great guy. You're going to have an amazing life together." Emily nodded, her eyes shining. "I know, Sarah. I feel so lucky. Everything is just perfect." But even amidst the celebration, a nagging thought tugged at the back of Emily's mind. She had noticed that James never spoke much about his family, particularly his grandmother, who was supposedly very dear to him. Whenever she brought it up, James would change the subject or give a vague response. At the time, she brushed it off, thinking it was just his way of dealing with family matters. However, something about it didn't sit right with her. The days turned into weeks, and wedding preparations were in full swing. Emily immersed herself in the whirlwind of planning, eager to create the perfect day. She spent hours trying on wedding dresses, each more beautiful than the last, visiting potential venues, and coordinating with florists and caterers. Her friends were by her side, helping her make decisions and sharing in her excitement. Yet, as the plans progressed, Emily couldn't shake off the feeling that something was amiss. James seemed distant whenever she mentioned his grandmother. One evening, as they were looking through the guest list, Emily brought it up again. "James, I noticed your grandmother isn't on the list. I thought she was really important to you." James looked up from the list, a shadow crossing his face. "She is, but she's not well. It would be too much for her to travel and be a part of all this. Let's not worry about it." Emily frowned, but decided not to press the issue. She wanted everything to be perfect and didn't want to cause any unnecessary tension. However, the seed of doubt had been planted. She couldn't understand why James would be so reluctant to involve his grandmother, especially if she meant so much to him. As the wedding date drew nearer, Emily's curiosity grew. She felt a strong urge to meet James's grandmother, to understand why he was so evasive about her. Despite James's reassurances, Emily decided she needed to see for herself. She wanted to know the woman who had supposedly played a significant role in his life. Little did she know, her decision would uncover a heartbreaking truth. One sunny afternoon, Emily found herself driving through the outskirts of town, following the directions to James's grandmother's house. The neighborhood grew less affluent as she drove, the houses smaller and more run down. Her heart pounded with anticipation and a touch of anxiety. She wondered what kind of woman she was about to meet and why James had been so reluctant to involve her in their lives. When she finally arrived, Emily was taken aback by the sight of the small, dilapidated house. The garden was overgrown with weeds, and the paint was peeling off the walls. It was a stark contrast to the image she had of James's family. She parked her car and walked up the narrow path to the front door, feeling a mix of curiosity and trepidation. Emily knocked gently on the door, and after a moment, it creaked open. An elderly woman stood there, her face lined with age and weariness, but her eyes still bright. "Hello, can I help you?" she asked, her voice soft but tinged with surprise. "Hi, I'm Emily, James's fiancée," Emily replied with a warm smile. "I wanted to meet you and maybe talk about the wedding." The grandmother's eyes widened in surprise and then filled with tears. "Oh, my dear, come in, please." She led Emily into a small, cluttered living room, offering her a seat. "I haven't seen James in so long. He told me he was getting married, but I didn't think I'd ever meet you." As they talked, Emily learned that James's grandmother had been living alone, struggling with health and finances. James had stopped visiting her months ago, saying she was a burden. The more Emily listened, the more her heart broke. How could the man she loved, the man who was so kind and caring to her, treat his own grandmother so cruelly? "I thought he loved me," the grandmother said, tears streaming down her face. "But he told me he couldn't take care of me anymore. I've been managing on my own, but it's been so hard." Emily's mind raced as she tried to process what she was hearing. She felt a surge of anger and sadness. This was not the James she knew, the man she had agreed to marry. How could he be so heartless to his own flesh and blood? That evening, Emily returned home with a heavy heart. She felt betrayed and confused. She loved James, but she couldn't ignore what she had learned. She decided she had to confront him, to hear his side of the story, and understand why he had treated his grandmother so poorly. As they sat in their living room, the tension was palpable. Emily took a deep breath and began. "James, I went to visit your grandmother today." James's face hardened immediately. "Why did you do that, Emily? I told you she wasn't well." "She's more than not well, James," Emily replied, her voice trembling with emotion. "She's living in terrible conditions, neglected and heartbroken. How could you do this to her?" James's eyes flashed with anger. "She never did anything for me growing up. Why should I care about her now? She's just an old woman who expects too much." Emily felt a cold chill run down her spine. This was not the man she thought she knew. "James, she's your grandmother. She needs your help. How can you be so heartless?" "Heartless," James scoffed. "I've done enough. She can't expect me to drop everything for her. I have my own life to live." Emily's heart broke as she realized the truth. James was not the compassionate, caring man she thought he was. She had to make a decision, one that would change her life forever. Emily spent the next few days in a daze, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. She loved James, but she couldn't ignore what she had discovered. She couldn't marry a man who could be so cruel to his own family. After much soul-searching, she knew what she had to do. One evening, Emily sat alone in her room, looking at her engagement ring. Tears streamed down her face as she thought about the future she had envisioned, the life she had planned with James. She knew she had to end it. With a heavy heart, she packed her bags, knowing she couldn't stay any longer. Emily called James to meet her. When he arrived, she took a deep breath and began. "James, I can't marry you. I can't be with someone who can treat their own grandmother so heartlessly." James's face twisted with anger. "You're leaving me over this? You're throwing everything away because of her?" Emily nodded, tears in her eyes. "Yes, because it's not just about her. It's about who you are. I can't be with someone who lacks compassion and kindness." As Emily walked away, she felt a mix of sadness and relief. She knew she had made the right decision, even though it was one of the hardest things she had ever done. In the weeks that followed, Emily found herself visiting James's grandmother regularly. She helped her clean the house, cooked meals for her, and kept her company. The old woman's eyes began to sparkle with a new light, her spirits lifted by Emily's kindness. One afternoon, As they sat together in the garden, the grandmother turned to Emily and said, "Thank you, my dear. You've given me hope and happiness I thought I had lost forever." Emily smiled, feeling a warmth in her heart she hadn't felt in a long time. "You've given me a new purpose," she replied. "We're family now, and I promise I'll always be here for you." The two women, once strangers, had formed a bond that went beyond blood. Emily had found a new path, one filled with compassion and love. She had lost a fiancé, but gained a family. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the garden, Emily and the grandmother sat on a bench, content and happy. They had found each other in the most unexpected way, proving that sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the most fulfilling journeys. To Emily and the grandmother, sitting on a bench in a park, smiling and content. Asterisk, asterisk, voiceover, asterisk, asterisk. What would you do if you discovered a dark secret about someone you loved? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more incredible stories. Thank you for being a part of Narrative Stories. Your support and engagement mean the world to us. We are committed to bringing you the best in storytelling. What kinds of stories would you like to see next? Share your thoughts in the comments below.
I found a new girlfriend, and we're planning to move in together. So I'm divorcing you, and you're going to go to your parents. I don't understand what you are saying. I don't need you anymore. I can leave you with my parents if you want to be a breadwinner or a housekeeper. Zara, you understand. My parents-in-law and my husband laugh at me. They are the worst kind of people, but for me, it's better that way. Then you all need to leave. My name is Zara, and I am a 32-year-old office worker. I have lived my whole life working. After graduating from college, I started working for a major company. For about 10 years, I worked hard and obtained qualifications for promotions. Thanks to that, I am now department manager at such a young age. I am blessed with a boss who always has something useful to say to me. In a group of highly motivated and talented subordinates, I was very fulfilled in my work, but my personal life was not at all fulfilling. I had a boyfriend once when I was a student, but none since I started working. Worried about my situation, a friend of mine hosted a dinner party for me. That is where I met Archie. He was kind, had a nice smile, and gave me the impression that he was very personable. Since he was the same age as me, we had a lot in common, and it was fun talking to him. We soon became friends, exchanged contact information, and started going out to eat alone together. Then he confessed his feelings for me, and we started going out together. We got along well, and he proposed to me, and we ended up getting married. I was so happy to be married to the man I love so much, and soon after, I went to his parents' house to greet them. His parents were very kind and welcomed me with open arms. Zara, it's nice to meet you. I can't believe such a beautiful person came to be Archie's bride, cried. I am so proud of my son for bringing a good woman here. Hey Mom and Dad, stop it. Zara is getting scared, said Archie. Oh my, if you really think so, you can say it. That's right, it's a compliment, so it's okay. His parents were very friendly and easy to talk to, just like him. Zara works for a major company, doesn't she? Oh no, that's great. It's cool to be a woman who can work hard. Will you quit your job when you get married? No, I'm going to keep working. Well, you've got a good job at a good company, that's better, I was relieved. According to my friends around me, I had heard that their mother-in-law told them to quit the job. They say that they are often told that it is a wife's job to support her husband. So I was glad. My heart was filled with excitement. I thought to myself that my would-be mother-in-law was generous. After greeting my parents, we were married. My heart was filled with excitement for the new married life that was about to begin. My husband moved into the house I was living in, and we started our new married life together. I'm very happy to be newlyweds with my husband, whom I love very much. I'm happy to be able to be at home with him all the time, and I'm also happy to have him home when I come home from work. 6 months into our life together, my husband said he had something he wanted to discuss with me. If you don't mind, I'd like you to live with my father and mother. What do you mean, live together? Yes, they are getting old, and I am worried about many things. I see, I can certainly understand how my husband feels. My parents are about the same age as my husband's parents, but my brother and his wife are currently living with them, so I have nothing to worry about. However, my husband is an only child, so it is understandable that he is concerned about his parents. Does this mean we are living with my in-laws? Yes, it would, but do they have a room available for us? They use every room for some reason or another. About that, if you like, I think it would be a good idea to renovate my parents' house and make it a 2-family house. 2 families. Yes, if we do that, it will be much cheaper than buying a new house. We can live in a beautiful and spacious house while still maintaining our privacy, right? I see, I thought it was indeed an attractive proposal. My in-laws are very kind people, and we won't be together all the time if we live in 2 houses. It would be less stressful. Yes, that's fine, really, thank you. My mom and dad will be so happy. I was happy to see my husband so happy. Later, my in-laws came to visit us, and both of them were very grateful. I even thought that with such a kind and cheerful family, I wouldn't mind not having 2 households. Soon after that, my husband and I discussed remodeling my in-laws' house. The cost would be around $100,000, but as we were discussing it, my husband made a surprising remark. Actually, I have a favor to ask you. Can you pay for the remodeling? What do you mean, the full amount? Why? Then my husband looked very uncomfortable. Actually, we are in debt. I was surprised. Neither my husband nor my parents-in-law had ever said anything like that when we were dating or when we got married. I was surprised. How much debt do they have? About $150,000. What? I thought it would be a few tens of thousands of dollars, but I was surprised at the amount of money, and I ended up shouting out loud. It wasn't so bad at first, but it gradually grew, and even if I tried to pay it back, I couldn't. My parents are already living on a pension. I can't pay them back as much as I'd like, and the debt is getting bigger and bigger. I see, I could not hide my surprise and upset at the sudden and shocking revelation. I had no idea that my parents-in-law owed me such a large sum of money. Zara, I need a favor. Will you help me pay off my father and father-in-law's debt? They can't afford it anymore, and I don't make a very good salary either. Then isn't it going to be tough to renovate the house and live together as 2 families? No, that's important, so let's go ahead as planned. You have asked me to pay for the remodeling and your father's debt. I'm on the hook for $250,000. I know I'm talking about difficult things, but I want to take care of my life with Zara, and I want to protect my mom and dad. It's because I love both my parents and Zara. I'm sorry I'm being greedy, but if you really love me, please help me. I'll pay you back little by little. I was very distressed. My husband and my in-laws have no one to turn to but me, and I knew that my husband really loved me. But at that time, I was completely deceived by my husband's words. Love is blind, I think, and that is exactly what it is. Okay, I'll pay for it, I agreed to do so. Then my husband said, "Thank you so much," and he shook my hand and thanked me very much. He told my parents-in-law, and later they came to our house and apologized to me. My mother-in-law even shed tears of joy. I have to do my best from now on. I had to take over my in-laws' debt, and I was determined to do it. However, although I had some savings, I was afraid to pay it all at once. So for now, I decided to pay about $330,000 from my savings and then pay the rest in installments. Then my in-laws joined us, and we talked about repayment. I explained to my in-laws about the installments I had just made. They said that I could do whatever I wanted. Then why don't you transfer the money directly to the account for debt repayment? We're not very good at managing money, and I'm a little afraid to transfer a lot of money. When my husband said this, my parents-in-law nodded. Indeed, it would be time-consuming for me to transfer the money to my parents-in-law's account and then for them to transfer it to their repayment account. And since it was a large sum, I would not like it if the money was not transferred in the middle of the process. So I agreed to that. Once the conversation was settled, my parents-in-law looked very relieved. Now we don't have to be afraid of the monthly debt collection. That has been really scary. Dad and Mom, you should thank Zara properly. Well, I can't tell you how many times I thanked you. I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much. I'm so glad Zara came to be his wife. No, I was happy that my in-laws were happy. However, I felt a little uncomfortable because I thought that they might think of me as a money spinner when they said those last words. I felt a little bad, but I wanted to take care of my beloved husband's family. With that in mind, I began to make payments, and at the same time, we remodeled our house and completed our two-family home. We started living together in a beautiful and spacious house. My parents-in-law were very happy. We started living together, and my husband's eyes lit up at the new house. I was really cautious and seduced her. You should be more grateful, my husband said. Oh my, you're one of the people who created that debt, replied my parents-in-law. What? But I'm the one with the least. What are you talking about? How much did you spend on horse racing? Your gambling is terrible. I get a jackpot once in a while, so there were times when we were in the black. How can you be in the black when you owe $150,000? But at this rate, we'll be able to get out of debt and get back on track. That's really great. And she even remodeled our house. I got a really good wife. Well, I'm going to throw her away after she pays off the debt, my husband and parents-in-law laughed. I was so stunned that I couldn't move from the front door for a while. After calming down a little, I made a loud noise as I closed the lock and said, "I'm home," from the front door. When I went to the living room, my parents and in-law and husband greeted me with smiles. "Oh Noel, welcome home, good job, good job. Well then, we're going back to our room. Let's have dinner together again." I was so afraid of this gentle smile of my parents-in-law because I had heard their earlier conversation. Likewise, this man who is pretending to be a good husband with a smile on his face shocked me. I wondered what I had been doing to try to pay them back. "Didn't you say you had to work late today?" my husband asked. "Yeah, I've been working a lot more than I expected, so I decided to hurry up and cook dinner and came home on time," I replied. Then, when my husband didn't know, I tried my best to act calm until dinner so that my husband would not realize what I had done. Then, when my husband was taking a bath, I stayed in my room and cried alone. But crying as hard as I could made me want to give my husband and in-laws a break. I cried as hard as I could. From then on, I acted quickly. I began to prepare for the divorce and then steadily made plans for what to do after the divorce. About 3 months passed. I pretended to be happy and told my husband that I had paid off my parents-in-law's debt. My husband rolled his eyes. "What? You paid off the debt, that $150,000. That was supposed to take roughly 3 years, right? Actually, I have quite a bit of money saved up, but I was afraid to pay it off all at once. So, I started taking out a little bit from my salary and savings. But we were already below $100,000, and I thought it would be better to pay it all off at once." "I see," my husband replied. Then, I asked, "Do you mind if I check?" and asked to see my bank book. I showed my husband the bank book. Oh, it's true. $90,000 was paid all at once. My husband tried to contain his excitement as much as possible, but I could see that he was itching to get out of there. Wow, Sarah, thank you. My dads are going to love this, my husband exclaimed, putting his hands on his face, pretending to cry. Soon after, my parents-in-law also came and thanked me. Thank you so much. I'm so glad I met Sarah. You're like God. If I hadn't known any of this, I would have surely been happy to be along for the ride, having been deceived. But I already know what these people are really like, and I only acted because I was ready for my plan. A few days later, my husband asked to speak with me. He looked very serious. What on earth? I exclaimed. I'm sorry, but you have to leave me. What? What do you mean? I acted surprised on purpose. I have a new girlfriend. I'm going to live here with her. So, I'm divorcing you, and you're going to my parents' place. I was really taken aback by Archie's unexpected statement. I knew from eavesdropping on our earlier conversation that my husband would leave me when he finished paying his debts. However, I did not expect him to openly declare his infidelity. What did he mean by having me go to his in-laws after he left me? I asked. I don't really understand what you mean. My husband's mood turned sour. You're not very understanding at all. I don't need you anymore, but as a breadwinner or a housekeeper, I can keep you here. Then the front door opened, and my in-laws came in. Archie, did you finally tell her? They asked. Yeah, I told her. I wish I could have been there for that moment, my husband replied. Oh, that's how it is. You can come to her house if you do the chores for us. Of course, we'll charge you rent, though, my parents-in-law said, laughing. They are the worst people ever, but that's more than I can say for me. Then all of you need to leave, I said. My in-laws rolled their eyes at my comment. What are you talking about? Have you forgotten I can easily pay for the renovation myself? You changed the name of the house to mine. That's why I have the rights to this house. I can decide who to let live in the house and who to kick out, I said. The faces of my in-laws turned blue at my comment. Then, they finally remembered about the title of the house. I was really dumbfounded. I'm sorry, but you can't live here anymore. If we get divorced, you'll be strangers, my in-laws realized the gravity of the situation. But my husband, not wanting to be outdone by me, retorted, but you took over our debt and paid it in full. You're the one who's losing money if we had no debt. We could at least afford a new place to live. That's true. Thank you for letting us live in a nice house while you pay our debts, my in-laws and husband said. So, I told them the fact. I'm sorry, but I didn't pay off the rest of the $90,000 debt. What? No. But you had money missing from your bank book. That was just a separate account that I created and moved around. So, the debt hasn't changed for $90,000. I just haven't had the collections come yet because I've been paying large sums of money continuously. But I think it's time for them to come. So, you are responsible for paying the rest, my husband and in-laws went pale. Then I shot them a warning. Archie, you told me you were having an affair, so you should pay the alimony. I'll charge your partner for the affair too. Oh no. She went out with me even though she's beautiful because I own a house and have money. If they charge me alimony, she'll dump me. I don't care about that. No, I apologize. Please don't leave us, my husband is afraid of being dumped by the adulterer, and my in-laws are afraid of being dumped by me. They are truly selfish and scum parents and children in every way. I have nothing to do with you people anymore, no matter what you say. I have also put this house on the market. I will also have you pay your debt of $60,000 that I paid on your behalf through my lawyer." Oh no. The in-laws froze, stunned by the loss of everything they had. I then demanded a divorce in alimony from my husband through my lawyer. I also demanded alimony from the adulterer. I demanded $60,000 from my in-laws for what I had paid them. Actually, that renovated in-law house sold for about $200,000. It was in a good location, and there was a family that was just looking for a duplex, so we got a good price. They were able to buy it, so I had to pay $160,000, which included the $60,000 I owed on the debt and $100,000 for the renovation. I have paid $160,000 but gained $40,000 as a result. In addition, I also get alimony from my ex-husband and the affair partner, which is a very positive situation. On top of that, I was able to get a small payment of $60,000 from my ex-parents-in-law. I am the one who is getting the most out of this situation. I think this is a reasonable request because the damage I have suffered was so bad that I distrusted people. As for me having that much savings to begin with, I was trying to learn how to invest so that I could pay off my in-laws' debts as quickly as possible. And since I had quite a lot of savings to begin with, I put a few tens of thousands of dollars or so into investments. I found that my assets had grown quite a bit in about a year. Plus, I had gotten a raise, so I was getting paid quite well. So, I was able to take such a drastic step because I had saved a lot of money. I was the biggest beneficiary, and my former in-laws were back in debt and lost their house. To be honest, I think they deserved it because they cheated me. Fraudulent people like that should go to hell. For once, I should reflect on what happened to me this time and develop a better eye for people. From now on, I will also continue to save and increase my assets so that I can live a luxurious life in my old age, and I want to make many happy memories with people.
Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles.
It was Monday morning, and we were sitting at the kitchen table after finishing breakfast. I was sipping my coffee while reading the newspaper when my wife said, "Chad, could you put the newspaper down? I need to talk to you." I set the paper on the table and she continued, "I'm leaving you, Chad. I want a divorce. Is that all?" I asked, picking the newspaper back up and flipping to the sports section. "I'm serious, Chad," she insisted. I ignored her, which only made her more upset. "Damn it, Chad. Put down that newspaper and talk to me about this. I have nothing to say except goodbye. It's not much of a loss anyway. You haven't been worth a damn as a wife for over a year, so just go." I put the newspaper down, stood up, and walked to the home office. I grabbed a notebook and pen from my desk, pulled an envelope from a drawer, and returned to the kitchen table. I wrote on the top sheet of the notebook, "Tyrone. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank God. She is leaving me." As I was about to place the note in the envelope, I had an idea. I pulled out one of the lottery tickets I had bought the night before and added it to the envelope. Then I wrote, "Maybe if you get lucky and win, it'll be enough to keep the cheaters satisfied, so she won't cheat again. Good luck, kid. You're going to need it." I signed it, "A very grateful Chad," folded the sheet, placed it in the envelope, sealed it, addressed it, and handed it to Kathy. "When you see him, give him this." She took it, shock written all over her face. "You know, just because you think I'm ignorant doesn't mean I actually am." "Perhaps," I replied, reclaiming the envelope from her. "Maybe I should mail it myself. I don't trust you not to open it, read it, and then throw it away. Now, why don't you go pack your things and get out of my life? And since you're leaving, you need to be out of the house as soon as possible." "I'm not going anywhere. I'm not moving out just so you can bring your lover in." I stood up, poured coffee into a travel mug, topped it off, and headed to work. On the way, I stopped by the bank, closed our savings and checking accounts, and emptied our safe deposit box. Then I went to a bank closer to work and opened new accounts in my name only. Next, I called to cancel all our joint credit cards and arranged for new cards to be issued in my name only. After that, I focused on my day-to-day tasks. I stayed late after work, had dinner and drinks with my executive assistant, and mentioned that I was back on the market if her sister was still interested. Maria laughed and said, "To hell with my sister. If you're single again, I want to be first in line." Maria had started with me as a secretary 10 years ago, proving so valuable that I promoted her to my assistant 4 years ago, and later, to to my executive assistant 2 years ago. Once, on a Sunday, I had a backyard barbecue and invited Maria, but she had to decline because her sister was visiting from out of town. So, I suggested she bring her sister along. Tara was a very busty, attractive blonde, and on Monday, Maria told me with a laugh that Tara had a crush on me. I chuckled and said, "Never mention it to Kathy. She can be, and sometimes is, insanely jealous." Now Maria was saying she was interested in me, and I had never realized she could feel that way. "All right," I said jokingly, "then Tara moves to second place, and you can take first." "I'm not joking at all, boss. I'm dead serious. I want to give it a try." "Maria, you might not agree when you hear what I have to offer." "What exactly?" "She wants a divorce, so I'm leaving it to her and her lover. I have no idea what their schedule might be." "Her lover? She slept with the guy about 1.5 years ago, and I think she finally decided that a few days a week with him isn't enough, so she's going full-time." "How long have you known?" 1.5 years. I knew almost from the day it started." "How did that happen?" "A friend of mine saw her going into a motel room with a man and called me. I hired a private detective to follow her for a week, and he got me all the information I needed." 1.5 years, and you did nothing about it? What was I supposed to do? Get angry and turn my life upside down? In this state, divorce is no fault. Everything would have to be split in half, and I'd have to sell the house and split the proceeds with her. I'd have to give up the pool, the hot tub, my woodworking shop, and the 3-car garage and move into some apartment. No thanks. I decided to just ignore it and let her cook for me, do my laundry, and keep the house clean. How could you be around her knowing she was cheating on you? You'd be surprised how quickly love can turn to hate, and then hate turns into indifference. I can't believe a healthy guy like you could go 1.5 years without sex. Who said anything about going without sex? As long as Kathy was offering, I was taking. The frequency did decrease somewhat, though. I didn't touch her on the days I knew she was with him. Other than that, the only change was that I stopped making love and just had sex. Do you have any idea why she did it? No idea, but he probably wasn't the first. You think she had other lovers? I can't know for sure, but what I do know is that in the 10 years we've been married, she fell into a certain mood 4 times, as far as I can remember. For a time, she acted the way she has for the last 1.5 years since she got involved with this guy. It's just a guess on my part, but I'd almost bet that the other times were for the same reason. If she hadn't been seen, and I hadn't been alerted, I would have taken her recent mood as just another one of those women's things. Maybe I'm wrong in my thoughts, but it doesn't really matter. I know for sure about this affair, and that's all I need to know to understand she's a cheater. What are you going to do now? Wait. Wait for what? To see what she plans to do. Now she's on her own. I emptied the bank accounts, canceled all her credit cards, and told her to get out of the house. She wanted a divorce, so I decided to leave it up to her. Since she doesn't earn enough to support herself and pay a lawyer, she'll have to get money for a lawyer from her lover, and I don't know if he'll give it to her. I assume they discussed this before she hit me with it, but I have no way of knowing. I'm just saying, if you're really interested in me, you'll be involved with a married man who has no idea how long it will take before he gets divorced. You're thinking about this the wrong way, Chad. How so? If she files for divorce, she'll be in control. You'll be served, and that could be bad. You have no idea what she might do. They might order you to leave the house and give it to her pending the hearings. What if she files and claims mental and physical cruelty and gets a restraining order keeping you away from her and the house? You need to set the pace, boss. You need to be in the driver's seat. Make her react, not the other way around. Besides, you'll be helping me a lot. Helping you? How? If you're going to wait and let her file, what if she doesn't? What if her lover doesn't give her the money for it? That could put us in a position of adultery, and she could use that against you in the future. You say she cheated, and she says, so what? You did too. If you file, you're stating that from your perspective, the marriage is over, and what you do from that point on is none of her business. Legally speaking, you'll still be married until the divorce is final, and being with me would technically still be considered adultery, but no court will hold that against you. If it doesn't start until after you've filed for divorce from Kathy, it seems I need to stay away from you until either you or she takes legal action. If we wait for her, it could take years, or maybe just a week, but it would be under her control. If you file, you could meet with a lawyer early tomorrow and serve Kathy by Thursday. That would give me the weekend to work on winning you over. Winning me over? I'm dead serious, boss. What's the point of being first in line if I don't take advantage of it? She was right, and I knew it. So, I pulled out my cell phone and speed-dialed Alex. Alex and I had been friends since 3rd grade, and he was a lawyer who practiced family law, a polite term for divorce law. When he answered, I told him I needed his legal services and explained my situation. He expressed his sympathy because he and his wife, Sally, were our friends, and he liked Kathy, but he assured me he would take care of it as soon as he got to his office in the morning. He asked me to come by at lunchtime so I could sign the papers, and then we could grab lunch. Then, just to be a jerk, I told him I wanted a restraining order. I lied and said Kathy told me that if I caused her any trouble for leaving me, her lover, Tyrone, would straighten me out. Alex laughed and said he knew it was pure nonsense, but that he would still do it. You know there will be a hearing on this order within 10 days, right? I can get it and serve it, but there has to be a hearing before the judge will order it to stay in effect. I know, and I'm prepared for that. But right now, the main thing is to get her out of the house and keep her out for a while. We don't have kids, so she has no real reason to use the house while the divorce is ongoing. I'm sticking to the principle of possession is 9/10 of the law. There's no reason for a judge to order me out and let her in. That's what I'm aiming for. I told her to get out when we talked this morning, but I don't know what I'll find when I get home. She might be gone, or she might still be there. Since I can't be sure where she'll be, I plan to serve her at work. Is there no chance you two could come to some agreement? None. Then I'll see you tomorrow. I hung up, looked across the table at Maria, and asked, What do you have planned for me this weekend? She laid out her ideas, and they sounded pretty good to me. When I got home, Kathy was sitting at the kitchen table, going through some papers. Why are you still here? I asked, walking to the fridge and grabbing a beer. This is my house too. I'll stay here until I can make other arrangements. If you don't like my company, feel free to move out. Not in your damn life. Sit down, and let's discuss what we're going to do. There's nothing to discuss. I know what I'm going to do, and I don't care what you plan to do. There are things that need to be worked out, Chad. No, Kathy. There are no such questions. It's simple. You said you want a divorce, so go and get it. You need to hire a lawyer, file the papers, and cover all the court costs. What I will do is fight you tooth and nail for every little thing. We live in a no-fault state. Everything is split 50-50, so decisions will have to be made about who gets what in this mess. I'll drag this out to keep your attorney fees piling up. You know they don't work for free, right? You want the coffee table? Well, guess what? I want it too. You want the couch? Too bad, Kathy. It has great sentimental value to me, and I simply must have it. Why all of a sudden? You didn't seem to care about any of this before. You didn't even show any emotion when I told you I wanted a divorce. All you did was tell me to pack my things and get out. That was before I had time to think about it. I looked into her eyes and took a risk. I let you off the hook the first 3 times because you didn't want a divorce. I loved you enough to keep quiet and stay with you because you always came back to me. She turned away when I mentioned the first 3 times, which, as far as I could tell, confirmed my suspicions. It's hard to say why I stayed with you. I didn't file for divorce. I thought maybe I did something that really pissed you off, and you felt you had to do this to get back at me. Eventually, you'd end your affairs, and I foolishly thought it was because you realized you loved me and came back. I looked down at the floor and noticed the mess on my shoes. I thought this thing with Tyrone was just a repeat of the previous times, but now I see I was wrong. I've come to understand that you're nothing but a lowly cheater. If you hadn't decided to leave me for Tyrone and ended things with him, you'd be spreading your legs for some other jerk in 6 months or a year. Thinking about it, I realized I needed some form of revenge. What I really wanted to do was take a thick belt and beat you with it until your skin broke and you bled on the floor, but that would just land me in jail. The only thing I could do without ending up behind bars was to make this divorce as difficult and expensive as possible for you. You're right. This is also your home, and if you've decided to stay, I have to let you be here, but I don't have to like it, and I don't have to talk to you. Move your stuff to one of the spare bedrooms and stay the hell away from me. I finished my beer and went upstairs to what used to be our bedroom to get ready for bed. I thought I had accomplished what I set out to do. I had given her something to think about. She needed to discuss everything with Tyrone and make decisions, which would take time. Time that Alex would use to serve Kathy and secure the restraining order. I could be wrong. Maybe Kathy had already met with a lawyer and the papers were on their way to me. But it was likely that I had taken the remaining funds when I canceled the credit cards, and they were about what I expected when I withdrew the cash from the bank. If she had seen a lawyer, she would have used our money to pay him. Of course, Tyrone could have covered the bill. All I could do was wait and hope that Alex took the first step. I got up and left the house before Kathy came out of her bedroom. I went to a bed and breakfast cafe for breakfast, and while sipping my coffee, I made a list of people to call once Kathy was served. I wasn't going to let her make me the bad guy. I would tell everyone about the divorce and explain why it was happening. At work, Maria told me she was really looking forward to the weekend, and I found myself hoping it would happen. I met with Alex for lunch and signed the papers. He said he would head to the county building after lunch to file the petition. You still want her served at work? Damn right I do. I think around 10 tomorrow. Call me as soon as it happens. I want the locks changed before she can come back home. I returned to work and arranged for the next day off. Before leaving the office, I called a locksmith and scheduled a quick service for the following day. It cost me a bit more, but I felt it was worth it. When I got home, Kathy's car was in the driveway, but she must have decided to stay in her room and not get in my way because I didn't see her. I left the house before she came downstairs and went to a bed and breakfast cafe for breakfast. Nina asked me where Kathy was. I always saw you together, and here you are 2 days in a row without her. You won't see us together anymore. We're splitting up. I see, she said, taking my order. When she placed the bill on the table, she added, my phone number is on the back, not the restaurant's number, mine. I was speechless as Nina walked away. 2 women in 2 days had shown interest. So why wasn't I enough for the woman I married? I would never know because I'd never ask. I drank my coffee and read the morning newspaper, waiting for the time when Kathy usually left for work. Then I went home and started packing Kathy's things, moving them to the garage. At 10:15, Alex called and said the papers had been served. I called the locksmith, and within 20 minutes, he was at work. It wasn't even an hour later when Kathy's car sped up the driveway. She couldn't miss the wide-open garage door and the large cardboard sign that read, Kathy, all your things are here in the garage. She stood there staring at the sign for a minute, then tried to enter the house. But of course, her keys didn't work. She rang the doorbell, but I didn't answer, and eventually, she left. I peeked into the garage and saw she had taken a couple of bags of her things. 2 minutes after she drove off, my cell phone rang, and it was Kathy. Hello, you're an a-hole. Did you really have to embarrass me in front of my colleagues? It's better than letting you humiliate me in front of mine. What the hell is this restraining order crap? I was afraid you'd ask Tyrone to come and beat me up for being rude to you. That's why. And you know it. I need to get into the house to grab some things. All your things are in the garage, Kathy. I didn't change the garage door code, so your opener will work. If what you need isn't there, make a list and tell me where it is, and I'll move it to the garage. Stop being ridiculous, Chad. You're making this much harder than it needs to be. Sorry, Kathy. Causing you some inconvenience doesn't adequately pay back the years you tormented me. But I need to do something for my own mental health. Just be grateful I didn't get violent. Goodbye. After hanging up on Kathy, I sat down with the phone and started calling everyone on my list. Most were shocked to hear that Kathy had cheated on me, but 2 weren't surprised. One said, finally caught her, huh? And the other remarked, I always thought you had an open marriage. She was always out with some guy, and you never mentioned it. I figured I could cross those 2 off my friends list. Kathy's parents were the most affected by the news and tried to tell me I must be mistaken. I always liked them, and they treated me almost like the son they never had. But I wasn't going to let Kathy tell them her version and make it seem like it was all my fault. If I let that happen, they would think poorly of me, and I didn't want that. After dealing with the calls, I went through the house one more time to gather Kathy's things, then made myself lunch. I had just finished eating when the guys from Aries Security arrived, clearly not trusting me in the slightest and having no doubt that Kathy would violate the restraining order and try to break into the house. I decided to install a security system, complete with cameras, after Kathy's actions. On Thursday at work, I told Maria that we were ready to go for the weekend. She smiled, clearly excited. Tomorrow night, dinner and dancing to start with, she said, returning my grin. When I got home, Kathy did exactly what I expected. She took some of her things and then broke into the house through the connecting door from the garage. The kitchen was a disaster. Plates and glasses were smashed all over the floor, and in the living room, several lamps were broken. But what made me smile was the sight of her pulling all my clothes out of the closet, piling them on the floor, and then she peed on them. All of this was recorded, showing not only that she violated the restraining order but also acted maliciously and destructively. This was evidence I could use at the restraining order hearing. I called Alex, and he contacted the police. They arrived, took a report, and snapped some photos. The next day, Kathy was arrested at work and taken to jail. She was fingerprinted, photographed, and brought before a judge, charged with violating the restraining order and willful destruction of private property. To my surprise, the judge set a hearing date and released Kathy on her own recognizance. Despite the chaos, My date with Maria was fun, and we scheduled a second date for Saturday. That too went well, and on Sunday, we enjoyed a lovely picnic together. On Monday, there was a hearing for the restraining order. When the judge saw the security camera footage, he not only made the restraining order permanent, but also ordered me to replace all the destroyed items, pay for the dry cleaning of my clothes, and cover the cost of cleaning the bedroom. He gave her 10 days to comply or face jail time for contempt of court. Just to be a jerk, I hired the most expensive cleaning company I could find to do the job. To my disappointment, Kathy managed to get the money to do everything the judge ordered. I never got to see Kathy jailed for contempt of court. The next 2 weeks passed, and Maria and I met often, but nothing more happened beyond a few kisses, sometimes quite intense, because neither of us felt comfortable since I was still a married man. However, we were slowly approaching the point where things were getting serious. We did not contest the divorce, and it was finalized in 6 months. It was a standard no-fault divorce, with everything split equally. I refinanced the house and bought out Kathy's share. I had been saving money in a separate account for an unexpected round-the-world trip to celebrate our anniversary, and since she didn't know about it, I didn't give her a cent. She also had no idea about the last 2 certificates of deposit I had placed in the safe, which I bought with my last 2 bonus checks. I had one more small victory. Kathy was awarded alimony for 2 years, or until she remarried, but it was set at only $100 a week instead of the $500 she had tried to get. This was unexpected, and Alex told me it was because we were very lucky with the judges assigned to my cases. The judge who presided over the restraining order hearing and the judge who oversaw the divorce were not only cousins who apparently discussed their cases, but they also both had cheating wives in the past. Neither of the judges believed that an innocent husband should be punished for the actions of a cheating wife. While they adhered to the law, they didn't go beyond what was required. Whatever Kathy had with Tyrone clearly wasn't that great, as 7 months after the divorce was finalized, she was living with her parents. 8 months post-divorce, I found myself at a bar in the Hilton, enjoying a beer and a steak sandwich for lunch. That's when someone took the stool next to me and asked, "Can I buy you a beer?" I turned to see my ex-wife's former lover. Curious, I invited him to continue. He signaled to Agnes and ordered us both a beer. After she brought them, he took a sip and set his glass down, staring at it for a few moments as he began peeling the label off the bottle. A small pile of label bits formed in front of him before he spoke. "I didn't mean to screw things up for you," he said, still not looking up. The night I met her, she wasn't wearing any wedding rings, so I had no idea she was married. She definitely wasn't acting like a married woman. She was at Bud's bar with a group of girls she worked with, and when I asked her to dance, she agreed. I bought her a drink, and she invited me to sit with her and the other girls. We danced 3 more times, and when I asked her out, she agreed. I quickly fell head over heels for her, and within a month, we were having sex whenever we could manage to meet up. Initially, we had to use motels since I was living with 2 roommates, and one of them was always around. We couldn't go to her place either, as she claimed she lived with her disabled mother, which also explained why we couldn't see each other more often. She said she could only go out when someone else was available to look after her mom. Eventually, I got my own apartment, so we didn't need to rely on motels anymore. Even though our meetings were irregular, I was in love with her and was planning to propose. I intended to buy a house big enough for the 2 of us and her mother. But just before I could pop the question, a guy I knew asked me why I was dating a cheater. I was ready to confront him when he revealed that Kathy was married and had a history of infidelity. It turned out she had cheated on you with his brother 2 years prior, and when her husband found out, he ended things with her. At first, I found it hard to believe, but then I received your letter. I sat on it for a week before confronting her, and she broke down in tears. She claimed she didn't love you, portraying you as an abusive drunk who physically beat her and tormented her emotionally. She insisted she hated you but was afraid to leave, because you supposedly threatened to track her down and kill her and anyone she was with. By that point, I had done some digging and realized she was lying, which erased any thoughts of marrying her. Still, she was good in bed, and since you had kicked her out, I let her move in with me, but only as long as she was willing to sleep with me. Everything was fine until the divorce was finalized and she began talking about marriage. That's when I ended it. My parents had split up because my mom cheated on my dad. He got custody of me, and she later remarried but was caught cheating on her second husband. She married a 3rd time and cheated again. I firmly believe in the saying, once a cheater, always a cheater. So I made it clear to Kathy that as long as she was okay with a friends with benefits arrangement, we were fine, but nothing more. About 3 weeks later, I came home from work to find she was gone. He took another sip of his beer and said there were rumors that I had known all along about our affair. He asked why I didn't divorce her immediately. I shrugged and replied, "You said it yourself. She was damn good in bed." I decided to let things be, enjoying the sex and the fact that there was someone to cook, clean the house, and do the laundry. I probably would have stayed in that arrangement if she hadn't mentioned leaving and wanting a divorce. He took another sip and added, "I never thought I'd say this, especially to you, but I miss having her in my bed." He finished his beer, stood up, took something out of his pocket, placed it on the counter, and pushed it toward me. "What is this? The lottery ticket you gave me?" I asked, surprised. "It's a winner. This is your half." He handed me a cashier's check for a substantial amount, a very, very large amount. "I waited to give it to you so you wouldn't have to split it with her in the divorce. See you around." And just like that, he left. When I returned to the office, Jan, my assistant, looked at me and said, "You look like the cat that just ate the canary. Was lunch that good?" I smiled. "Lunch was impressive." "Oh right," Jan said, remembering. "Maria no longer works for you, huh?" "Not in the office. She's home painting the room that will become the nursery when the twins arrive." Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
My name is Amanda, and I'm a 30-year-old woman. Recently, after nearly 3 years of silence, I received a call from my mother. She called seeking my help because my sister and her husband were facing a severe crisis. To provide some context, the man my sister is now married to was once destined to be my husband. My sister, Susan, who is 25, and my fiancé, Robert, who is also 30, betrayed me on the day of our engagement. Robert and I had been a couple since college, and after nearly 3 years together, he proposed, even organizing a surprise party for that evening. I felt on top of the world until around 2 p.m. that day when I stepped outside for better phone reception and witnessed Susan and Robert passionately kissing. It took them a few moments to notice me standing there, utterly shocked. I couldn't fathom he would betray me, especially on our engagement night. When they finally saw me, they separated quickly, but the damage was done. I fled to my car and drove straight to the nearest hotel, overwhelmed and trying to deny the reality of what I had just witnessed. While in my hotel room, I received a remorseful text from Susan confessing her love for Robert. This affair, it turned out, had been going on for some time. Shortly after, Robert sent a similar message, explaining he had proposed to me in hopes of suppressing his feelings for Susan, a plan that obviously failed. He admitted it was never about me but about them, believing they were truly meant to be. I was merely a placeholder, allowing him to ultimately connect with Susan. Devastated, I stayed at the hotel for several days to collect myself, lost in the shock and betrayal, almost convincing myself it was just a cruel joke. After nearly a week, I returned home, needing to gather my belongings and return to work to avoid losing my job. Upon arriving, I discovered my entire family had been living with Robert, all under one roof, awaiting my return. This might have been heartwarming if not for the circumstances of my departure. Despite their non-stop attempts to contact me while I was gone, I had not responded to any of their messages. So, when I finally returned, the house was in complete disarray. Everyone rushed to embrace me, expressing their joy at my return. Even Susan approached me, tears in her eyes, and wrapped me in a tight hug. I was too stunned to react and simply stood there silently as they all crowded around me. Once the commotion subsided, I cleared my throat and announced that I had come only to collect my belongings and leave permanently. Until then, Robert had been silent, but upon hearing my declaration, he revealed that he had already packed his belongings and was moving in with Susan, now that everything was out in the open. My family, my parents, my aunt, and my father's youngest sister who has lived with us since her husband died, all wore broad smiles, which I found completely inappropriate. Susan, standing beside Robert, looked at me sadly yet still smiling. Overwhelmed, I confronted them, asking why they were smiling, as I saw no reason for joy. Susan had ruined my engagement and taken the man I loved for nearly 3 years. There was nothing humorous or endearing about that. My mother spoke up, stating they couldn't alter the past but could embrace the future, a future that included Susan and Robert together. Although their relationship began with deceit, they regretted the circumstances but hoped I could see that this was supposedly for the best. Susan apologized for her actions, claiming she couldn't control her feelings and regretted not being honest sooner. She insisted that their love was genuine and that they planned to spend their lives together. Then, they kissed in front of me, causing my mother to tearfully wipe her eyes. I lost my composure and snapped, telling them that their actions were not sentimental but utterly repulsive. Surprisingly, my family became irritated with me, accusing me of being petty rather than happy for Susan. They claimed I was selfish and disapproved of my reaction. I was taken aback by their attitude and demanded they leave my house. I couldn't fathom how they were defending Susan and Robert, making me out to be the antagonist, as if I was overreacting. My father intervened, urging me not to behave childishly and to accept the situation, claiming that such things happen and that I should be pleased that my sister had found her soulmate rather than feel jealous. Their reactions seemed irrational to me, and I couldn't handle it anymore. So, I decided enough was enough, went to my room, quickly packed some of my belongings, and left without engaging further or heeding their pleas for me to stay. It became evident that they prioritized Susan's happiness over mine, disregarding what was morally right or wrong and my own feelings. Following that day, my family attempted to reach out multiple times, but I never responded, feeling no obligation to them. A few weeks later, I even received an invitation to Susan and Robert's wedding, which I promptly declined. Many mutual friends and some relatives who were aware of the truth also supported my decision by declining the invitation and distancing themselves from my family. It's been 3 years, and I've completely severed ties with them. They occasionally try to reconnect, sending well wishes on my birthday or during the new year, but I consistently ignore these overtures. Although I never blocked them, allowing them to see how well I was doing through my public social media account to perhaps evoke a sense of jealousy, it was a minor retaliation but the least I could do after their treatment of me. Until a few days ago, I had been largely unaware of their recent activities when my mother reached out from an unfamiliar number. When I answered the call, I didn't recognize the voice initially, but soon realized it was my mother. I attempted to hang up, but her desperate plea for a conversation stopped me. She sounded deeply troubled, compelling me to listen, if only for a few minutes. She explained that Susan and Robert had started a business years ago which was now floundering. Their investors were pulling out as the business failed to turn a profit, and they had sunk further into debt, even attracting the attention of loan sharks. They were under pressure from everyone, from their employees to their creditors. I was living comfortably and could technically afford to help, so, in desperation, my mother turned to me as a last resort, asking for a loan of nearly $95,000 to help Susan and Robert. I questioned why Susan wasn't the one asking for help directly and learned that Susan and Robert had specifically asked my mother not to tell me, still mindful of the rift from 3 years ago. Susan wasn't ready to seek assistance from me directly, but my mother knew of no one else capable of providing such substantial financial help quickly. The situation was dire. Susan and Robert were even struggling to afford basic necessities. While both our families and Robert's were trying to support them, it wasn't enough, especially considering many were retired and had their futures to consider. Despite this, I was reluctant to help. They had forfeited the right to ask anything of me the day they betrayed me. I informed my mother that I couldn't assist them, and even if I could, I chose not to. She became upset, accusing me of cruelty and urging me to consider my family. I reminded her that Susan and Robert hadn't considered me when they engaged in their affair, and my family hadn't thought of me when they chose to support them. So, I didn't see why I should be concerned about their well-being now. I've worked hard to reach where I am today, and I wasn't about to hand over $95,000 to two people who had shown they didn't deserve my support. My mother burst into tears on the phone, accusing me of growing up to be selfish and warning that my sister and her husband would face severe consequences if I didn't help. Despite her pleas, I firmly stated that I couldn't assist them and ended the call. Since then, she has bombarded me with texts, pleading with me to rethink my decision and consider my sister. She insists this isn't the time for petty revenge, claiming Susan is in dire straits and suggesting I'd regret not helping. My mother's desperation is palpable, but I refuse to feel guilty. I don't think I'm wrong for not financially aiding my sister after she betrayed me 3 years ago. I've finally blocked my family, a step I hadn't taken before because I wanted them to see how well I was doing and perhaps feel a twinge of jealousy. Moreover, I hesitated to cut ties completely in case I regretted it should something tragic occur. But now, I've let go of those concerns. Keeping them in my life this long was the actual petty action. Refusing to help now is merely logical. They've already squandered so much, and I'm certain they wouldn't be able to repay the money. $95,000 is a significant sum, and although I'm financially stable, it doesn't mean I can afford to give away such an amount without expecting repayment. If it were a close friend, the expectation would be the same. Even if I were inclined to help, I would still expect repayment, but considering these are people who were once close to me yet are no longer considered my loved ones, I cannot trust them to fulfill that obligation. Thus, there is no compelling reason for me to assist them. It's as straightforward as that. I've discussed this with several friends who concurred that my decision to withhold the funds was justified, not out of vengeance but because it is unreasonable and imprudent to support those who have previously betrayed me. Consequently, I have now blocked my mother to prevent any further attempts to guilt-trip me, which has eased my worries. At least, that was my initial thought. Update 2. Hi everyone, something significant unfolded today. While at work, I received an urgent call from my neighbor, informing me that a couple was outside my house, loudly demanding to see me. They had been creating a disturbance for nearly an hour, refusing to leave. Although my neighbor described them, I had a strong hunch about their identities, and her description only confirmed my suspicions. It was Susan and Robert. Given their erratic behavior, my neighbor urged me to return and handle the situation, convinced they were up to no good. Recognizing the potential threat, I thanked her and hurried home, anxious about them breaking in. Arriving in just under 20 minutes, I caught them attempting to pick the lock. As I confronted them, demanding to know their intentions, Robert swiftly knocked my phone from my hand. Susan claimed they merely wanted to talk, assuring they needed nothing from me at that moment. I sternly told them that any discussion would be brief and strictly outside in the yard. I was not about to invite them in. They reluctantly agreed, which was a relief. Because I thought it unwise to let them inside due to their apparent hostility, I kept the conversation outside. Susan began by telling me that our mother had updated her about the phone call, how I had ignored subsequent texts, and even blocked their numbers. She accused me of being unfair, claiming that after 3 years, I should have moved past the incident. She criticized me for being dramatic and seeking attention from the family, stating she felt insulted by my refusal to help, which prompted her visit. Susan explained that she had temporarily resolved their financial issues by selling their house and all their jewelry, but anticipated needing more help in the future. She wanted assurance that she could count on me for future support. I unequivocally told her that she should not expect anything from me under any circumstances, expressing deep resentment towards her and her husband. My anger was so intense that I warned her it was taking all my restraint not to lash out physically, and it would be best if they left immediately. Shockingly, Robert then demanded I sign a document promising financial support whenever they needed it in the future. I dismissed the idea, knowing such a document wouldn't hold up legally if signed under duress. The situation escalated when Susan pushed me, claiming I owed them help because we were family. Stunned by her audacity and tempted to retaliate, I resisted, knowing it would only exacerbate the situation. Instead, I quickly retrieved my phone, which Robert had knocked to the ground, and made a dash for my car. Fortunately, I had left the engine running, allowing me to quickly drive away without looking back. From a safe distance, I called the police to report the incident. I returned home just before they arrived. About 25 minutes later, and briefed them on everything that had transpired. The police then arrested Susan and Robert, taking them into custody. I was aware that the charges weren't severe and that Susan and Robert would likely be released soon, but having them taken into custody was still a relief. It meant I didn't have to deal with them directly for the time being. Several hours have passed since their arrest, and surprisingly, I haven't heard from any other family members. I had expected someone to reach out, perhaps from a different number, but none have. I suspect they're either ready to move on or simply biding their time, waiting for the right moment to contact me once things have settled down. Update 3 *. Hi everyone, it's been about a week since my last update. I thought the arrest of Susan and Robert might finally lead my family to leave me alone, but I was mistaken. Yesterday, my parents came to my house, significantly humbler than Susan and Robert had been. They requested a moment to talk, so I let them in. As soon as she entered, my mother began to cry and immediately apologized for siding with Susan over me. My father explained that seeing Susan and Robert's aggressive behavior towards me, which led to their arrest, had changed their perspective. They could no longer view them in the same light and had decided to sever ties with them. Throughout their visit, my mother was tearful, and my father continually apologized for previously siding against me. I told my parents that while I recognized their change of heart, it was too little, too late to mend our relationship. I've grown accustomed to living independently, on my own terms, and I'm not interested in prioritizing family dynamics that have repeatedly hurt me. While I acknowledged their apology, I couldn't commit to rebuilding our relationship. It felt like trying to salvage something irreparably broken. They seemed disappointed when I expressed my desire to remain distant but eventually requested that I at least unblock them to maintain some form of contact. I complied, unblocking them, which felt somewhat odd but manageable for now. I'm uncertain about what the future holds, but I am committed to maintaining my peace and living life as I see fit. Thanks for tuning into this update, and please subscribe to my channel for more insights and updates.
Growing up in Lansing, Illinois, I learned the harsh realities of survival. My father's misuse shaped my resilience, and my mother's silence taught me self-reliance. By my teenage years, I had become adept at navigating the rough streets of Chicago's South Side, where ambition and guile often determined who succeeded and who failed. While others clung to hope in traditional avenues, I found opportunities in unconventional ventures, some less than legal. This gritty upbringing forged the mindset I'd need for the battles ahead. Years later, I poured my tenacity into legitimate enterprises, real estate, vending services, and a coin exchange business spanning the region. Though my operations flourished, my personal life faltered. Marrying Lillian seemed like a dream initially, but as her ambitions clashed with my simpler desires, our bond unraveled. Her escalating betrayals and my refusal to accept defeat sowed the seeds for a storm that neither of us could escape. The court ruled against me in almost every way possible. I was ordered to provide $2,000 a month in alimony, $1,000 in child support, and cover the mortgage and health insurance until my daughter, Regina, reached adulthood, or longer if she pursued higher education. The total burden exceeded $6,500 monthly. My ex-wife, Lily, whose affairs with her firm's lawyers were no secret, had managed to manipulate the system to bleed me dry. I'm Kurt D'Angelo. My ex-wife is Lillian, and our daughter, Regina, is my pride and joy. Daddy's little girl, without a doubt. I took her to fun places when I could. She even told the judge she wanted to live with me, but he ignored her. The whole process was a farce. Lily had a job and didn't need my financial support on top of the mortgage and other payments. I felt cheated, and I suspect the judge was biased. I didn't take it lying down. I started planning my revenge. I can be vindictive when wronged, a trait honed growing up in Lansing, Illinois on Chicago's South Side. People there know how to settle scores. Some call me an entrepreneur. I just see opportunities and seize them. Admittedly, not all my early ventures were legal. Now I own rental properties, vending machines, and a coin-changing business similar to Coinstar, which operates across Chicagoland and northern Indiana. That business gave me an idea for how to pay Lily, entirely in coins. Let her haul them to the bank. Lily worked part-time after Regina started school, then became a paralegal. She climbed the ranks quickly, helped by her looks, I suspect. At the time, I supported her career, clueless about the reality. As she advanced, her attitude changed. She wanted a fancier lifestyle, pressuring me to move to an upscale neighborhood. Reluctantly, I agreed, though I kept our Oak Forest house as a rental property. We bought a $900,000 house in Wilmette, which she filled with expensive furniture. I never felt at home there. It marked the beginning of our downfall. I preferred a modest life, while she wanted to flaunt her success. After our divorce, I decided to follow the court's orders exactly, but on my terms. Regina's child support went into an account just for her. She had excellent health insurance, but Lily only got catastrophic coverage with a high deductible. When the first spousal support payment was due, I arranged for an armored truck to deliver it, all in coins. When Lily answered the door with one of her lawyer friends, the drivers unloaded bag after bag of change onto her marble floor. Neighbors gathered, curious about the commotion. I stood across the street filming as Lily screamed at me. I waved and shouted, "Enjoy your money, strumpet," before driving off. On Tuesday, a man approached me and asked, "Are you Kurt D'Angelo?" I ignored him. He repeated the question louder, then snapped a picture of me holding a subpoena. When I didn't take it, he threw it on the ground, said, "You've been served," and left. After making sure he was gone, I picked it up. I had court the following Wednesday, a week to prepare. I spent the week making calls, setting appointments, and planning. I also took my daughter, Regina, to lunch. She was furious with her mother, calling her a terrible person. Regina told me she wanted to live with me again, but her mother wouldn't agree. I told her I'd fight in court, even if it landed me in jail. She begged me not to get violent. I reassured her, explaining I'd set up a trust for her, with her uncle as trustee, ensuring her needs were met, none of it going to her mother. "She doesn't deserve anything," Regina said, showing her growing maturity. On court day, Regina, my lawyer, and I waited for our case to be called. Lily arrived with her lawyer, sneering at me. "You better stick to the rules." I simply replied, "Wait and see." When the judge called my name, Regina stood first, declaring she wanted to live with me, not her mother. The judge reprimanded her for her tone and dismissed her claim, citing a psychiatrist's report alleging inappropriate behavior on my part. I was stunned. Lily had weaponized an old report from Regina's therapy sessions to frame me as a carnivore. My lawyer objected, stating no charges were ever filed. The judge shut him down, refusing to reconsider. Lily's attorney then requested I be held in contempt, claiming child support wasn't paid. My lawyer countered, explaining the money had gone directly to Regina for her needs, verified by canceled checks. Regina nodded, backing up the claim. Frustrated, Lily's lawyer shifted tactics, complaining about spousal payments in coins, calling it an intolerable hardship. The judge agreed, saying payments should be made by check. My lawyer quickly challenged this, asking if the Chicago Police Department, part of the legal system, could insist on cash or card for fines. The judge hesitated. "If they can refuse checks, why can't my client pay in legal tender?" My lawyer pressed. Embarrassed and defensive, the judge retorted, "This is my court and what I say goes." His bias was clear, but I could see Lily and her lawyer scrambling. This wasn't over. My vindictive side was just getting started. I'd had enough. Rising from my seat, I glared at the judge. "You're the law? Or just here to please my wife's law firm? Was she a strumpet for you too?" The judge's face turned red as he exploded. "Mr. D'Angelo, you're in contempt of court. 6 months in Cook County Jail unless you apologize and comply with my conditions." I shot back without hesitation. "Who are you, king of this kangaroo court?" The judge, visibly shocked, barked an order to the bailiff. "Take him into custody." As the bailiff led me away, I turned to Lily, my estranged wife, and sneered, "Good luck getting your money, witch." Her expression was a mix of fury and confusion. She had no idea how much her life was about to change. Once at the jail, I was processed, strip-searched, fingerprinted, and escorted to a cell. 2 guards tried to intimidate me, asking why I disrespected the judge, but I wasn't fazed. At 6'4" and 255 pounds, years of hard labor had kept me strong, and my time in juvie had long ago stripped me of fear. The next day, in the yard, I kept to myself, watching everything from the shadows. During the evening meal, as I stood eating against the wall, a familiar voice called out, "Tex!" I turned, spotting Ringer, an old friend from my delinquent youth. We embraced, drawing curious glances from the other inmates. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice low but amused. "Told a judge he's an a-hole," I said flatly. Ringer chuckled. "How long they give you?" 6 months, unless I apologize, which isn't happening. We found a quiet spot to catch up. Ringer knew me too well, especially my penchant for revenge. I told him about Lily, her lawyer friends, and the judge who thought he could crush me. They'll regret crossing me, I vowed. Ringer gave a knowing nod. You always had a plan, Tex. Need help? Maybe, I replied. But for now, just having you here is enough. Ringer grinned. Well, you know I've got your back. For the first time since this mess began, I felt a sliver of control return. That night in my bunk, I reflected. My rough childhood shaped me. My dad was an abusive drunk, and my mom never stood up for me. I escaped to the streets, finding others like me. We weren't a gang, just kids trying to survive. We committed petty crimes and stole cars, which eventually got me locked up. Oddly, that experience turned my life around. It forced me to rethink my choices and build a plan for the future. Now, I had to plan again, but this time, for payback. By age 20, I had saved enough to buy a foreclosed house in my neighborhood, the first of many I renovated and rented out. At 22, I was at a club trying my luck when I met Lily. I barely remember the place. It's since been replaced by condos. That night, I thought I struck gold. Lily had just moved to Chicago from Seymour, Indiana, a small town famous for being John Mellencamp's hometown. Her small-town charm and fresh outlook on life intrigued me. We hit it off, opposites attracting. A year later, we married. The following year, Regina was born, named after Lily's mother. I bought a house in Oak Forest intending to rent it out, but Lily loved it and insisted we make it our home. Over the next decade, we renovated it together, raised our daughter, and hosted neighborhood barbecues. It felt like the perfect life, the American dream. Things changed when Lily got a job at a law firm. She outgrew our simple life, craving expensive clothes, jewelry, and fancy dinners with her colleagues instead of neighborhood get-togethers. She also began looking down on the south side of Chicago, where we lived. Her growing arrogance led to frequent arguments. Eventually, she pressured me to move to the north side. 3 years ago, we made the move, partly for the better schools. But Regina hated it. Her new classmates' snobbery made her miserable. She wanted to go back, and so did I, but Lily refused to listen. She was exactly where she wanted to be. Our marriage began unraveling one evening when she called, claiming she was attending a dance with colleagues. Suspicious, I tracked her phone and went to check. Hidden in the shadows, I watched her dancing provocatively with a group of men. Around 9:15, I overheard two guys in the restroom boasting about their encounters with Lily, including quick trysts in cars and plans for proper fun later that night. When I returned, I saw her making out on the dance floor with one of the men. At 9:30, she texted me, claiming she was too drunk to take the L and would stay with Paula, a colleague. Then she sent another message saying, "I'm sorry." She would be sorry. I followed her as she left the club, hand in hand with a younger lawyer. They didn't notice me as they climbed into his Lexus, kissing and groping. My anger subsided as I started planning my next move. I followed them to his building, noting every detail. It was time for payback. When I arrived, I found Regina waiting anxiously. I looked her in the eyes and said firmly, "We're leaving for good. Pack everything you want to take with you." She hesitated for a moment, then asked quietly, "What about Mom?" "There are other guys taking care of her now," I replied, my voice cold but resolute. Regina's expression shifted. She understood immediately. Without another word, we worked quickly. In 3 hours, the truck was loaded and we left, heading to my vacant house in Oak Forest. The next morning, my phone rang. It was Lily. "Kurt, what's going on? Where are you?" she demanded. "Home," I said bluntly. "Why?" she pressed, though her tone betrayed that she already knew the answer. "I don't know you anymore, Lily, and I don't want to," I replied, my voice flat with finality. Her voice trembled slightly. "Where's Regina?" "She's with me," I said firmly. "She doesn't want to live with you anymore." Lily tried to argue, saying I couldn't just walk away. "No, Lily, but your fun with other men is reason enough to leave. Expect divorce papers next week." Her response was venomous. "You Southsider piece of crap, my firm will destroy you." "Maybe," I said, "but you haven't seen my full wrath yet." Over 6 months, Lily never tried to reconcile. She openly bragged about dating lawyers, and Regina told me Lily was out late almost every night, bad-mouthing me and pushing Regina to find a rich husband someday. Regina defended me, saying she wanted to return to Oak Forest. Now, lying in jail, I imagined Lily thought she'd won. But I knew she'd struggle to manage the mortgage, health insurance, and spousal support without me. Jail wasn't breaking me. It was giving me time to plan. On Thursday, 2 guards summoned me to a video room. I protested, asking for my lawyer, but they shoved me inside, saying, "You're not meeting the judge. You're being sentenced." When I resisted, they locked the door, leaving me to yell in frustration. Minutes later, they let 6 inmates in. I knew their intent and prepared to fight. "You'll regret this," I warned. One lunged and I broke his nose. Then the rest attacked. I fought hard, punching, kicking, and pinning some against the wall, but a larger man got me in a chokehold. I swung until I blacked out. I woke in the infirmary, battered and in pain, knowing what had happened. The nurse approached, her face calm but firm. "I'm here to help you," she said. "You can accept it or suffer." Her honesty softened me. I nodded and managed, "Thank you." She brought me breakfast and freed one hand so I could eat. "Can I ask a favor?" I said cautiously. "That depends," she replied. "My friend Randall Turner, can I see him?" "We'll see," she said, leaving it vague. Later, Ringer visited. Seeing my condition, he muttered, "Oh, crap." I described the 6 inmates and 2 guards responsible. "I need their full names, not nicknames," I said. Ringer hesitated. "What are you planning?" "An eye for an eye," I said, but with a twist. Ringer saw the look in my eyes and understood what it meant. This wouldn't end well for certain people. "I'll get the info you need," he said. "What else?" "That's it. I'll handle the rest." The next day, Ringer handed me the list he'd promised. "What are you going to do with it?" he asked, curiosity and concern in his voice. "The less you know, the better," I replied firmly, pocketing the paper. Sunday brought an unexpected visit. Lily and Regina. Lily wasted no time breaking the tension. "So, how's life with your new cellmates?" she sneered, her tone dripping with mockery. I scowled. "What do you want?" "Regina insisted on coming," she said with a shrug, before smirking. "Ready to apologize yet?" "Not a chance," I snapped. "And stop spreading lies about me and Regina. You know they're not true." Her eyes gleamed with malice. "How do I know that? She's unusually attached to you." I stared at her in disgust. "You're disgusting. Go back to your boyfriends and leave me alone." With a smug smile, Lily turned and left. But I caught the look on Regina's face, anger and heartbreak simmering just below the surface. Once Lily was gone, Regina rushed into the room and burst into tears when she saw me. "Don't cry, sweetheart. It looks worse than it is," I said gently, trying to reassure her. "I hate Mom for this," she sobbed. "For lying, for making me live with her. She's horrible." "I know," I said softly, pulling her into a hug. Wiping her eyes, she straightened up. "Don't call me Regina anymore. I'm Gina now. I don't want anything to do with her or her family." I looked at her, proud of her defiance. "Gina, you're just like me," I said with a small smile. "We'll show them." We sat and talked for a while, the weight of the visit slowly lifting. Then I leaned closer and asked, "Can you do something for me?" She nodded without hesitation. "Anything, Dad." I handed her the list Ringer gave me. She tucked it into her bra. "Give this to Uncle Ken and tell him to visit me." Ken, my younger brother, had always been the brains of the family. While I protected him from our abusive father growing up, he buried himself in computers and became an expert. That divide made us a formidable team in our own way. After sharing some final words, Gina hugged me tightly before walking out, deliberately ignoring Lily. As she left, Lily called after her, muttering, "Stubborn girl," before following her out the door. On Tuesday, Ken came to visit. His eyes widened in shock at my bruises and battered state. "Looks better than Friday," I joked, flashing a crooked grin. He smiled faintly, then glanced around to make sure no one was listening. Switching to the secret language we'd used as kids, he said, "Gina gave me a list. What do you need?" I leaned forward and said evenly, "Addresses of their wives or girlfriends." Ken let out a low whistle. "Oh, crap. Just get the info and pass it to Gummy. Tell him to come see me, but without the list." Gummy was an old friend from the neighborhood, someone I trusted with certain tasks. Ken nodded, though his expression was uneasy. "I'll take care of it. Anything else?" "Just visit when you can," I said. "I could use a friendly face." Ken frowned. "Won't you be out soon?" "Not unless I apologize," I replied firmly. "And you know I won't." "You've always been stubborn," he said. "Kept you safe from Dad, didn't it?" I replied. He smiled, knowing I was right. "I'll check in soon," he promised. Back in my cell, Ringer warned me. Things are about to get rough, but they don't know why yet. The guards and the 6 inmates who attacked me made their threat clear with their glares, but they had no idea they'd soon pay the price. Gummy visited and asked, "Ken gave me this. What's the plan?" "Did Ken tell you what they did to me?" I asked. He nodded. "Return the favor, hit their loved ones. No DNA evidence. Use Steely Dan or his flexible cousins," I said. He understood. "Do it all at the same time and make sure they hear, 'Don't mess with Texas.'" "I'll get my guys," he said, leaving with determination. A week later, I noticed 2 guards were missing and one of the 6 inmates seemed distraught. I suspected the plan had been executed. Soon, prisoners began calling me Tex, and the 6's angry stares confirmed it. When one of them confronted me, Ringer's group surrounded us for protection. "You're a piece of crap," the inmate spat. "My girlfriend dumped me. She said she didn't want to risk getting hurt and mentioned 'Don't mess with Texas.'" Smirking, I replied, "Sounds like solid advice. Now your women know what it feels like. You hurt me. I hurt those you care about. Next time, it'll be your mother's." His face fell and he retreated to his group. Later, 2 guards confronted me, threatening to make my life miserable. "Then I guess your wives better get used to new attention," I said coldly. One guard snapped and started knocking me in front of the others. I didn't fight back. After a few minutes, another guard pulled him away, but not before prisoners and cameras witnessed it all. I was taken to the infirmary where Beth, the nurse, greeted me. "So, trouble again?" she asked. "I didn't fight, he just started striking me," I explained. "There'll be an investigation this time. He'll likely lose his job," she said while bandaging me. "One less corrupt guard," I muttered. "Guards are here to protect you, whether you believe it or not," she countered. "Well, they failed last time. He let it happen," I replied. She kept me overnight for observation. Meanwhile, the suspended guard's partner glared at me but said nothing. I could tell he'd gotten the message. Don't mess with Texas. Weeks passed, and Gina hadn't visited. Ken finally came with news. Lily was refusing to bring her. That enraged me even more. My ex-wife was now keeping my daughter from me, and I was determined to fight back harder. At the end of the month, Lily came to visit, dragging Gina along. Gina had refused to get out of the car until Lily relented. When Lily finally entered the room, she was already fuming. "Your daughter is impossible. She barely speaks to me and is just as stubborn as you," she snapped. "You said that last time," I replied evenly. "Why not ask the judge to give her to me? I'd gladly take her." "You're not getting her," Lily shot back. "She needs a good education to succeed." "Oak Forest is a good school, and she loved it there," I countered. "Wilmette's better. She's meeting people who can help her future," Lily insisted. "Our daughter will create her own future without riding anyone's coattails," I said firmly. Lily's tone turned sharper. "You're so stubborn you can't see the benefits," I sighed, tired of the same argument. "Lily, we've had this conversation too many times. You're not changing my mind, and I'm not changing yours, so why are you here?" "I know it's not to bring Gina to me." "Her name is Regina, not Gina," Lily corrected coldly. "That's not what she wants to be called," I replied. "Don't you want her to think for herself?" "You mean be stubborn," Lily retorted. "No," I said pointedly. "Independent. Strong enough to make her own decisions, not just follow someone with money or power." Lily smirked, recognizing the jab. Then, cutting to the point, she said, "I need spousal support. I have bills to pay." "You'll have to figure that out yourself. No paycheck for me means no payments," I said calmly. "What? I can't cover the bills with my income," she exclaimed. "Well, maybe you should have thought of that before dragging me to court," I replied. "You made things worse paying me in coins," she snapped. "And now you're getting nothing because I'm in jail," I said matter-of-factly. "You have to pay," she yelled. "No, I don't. What can they do? Jail me again? I'm already here." "What about the bills?" she whined. "Ask one of your lawyer friends to cover them. You deserve it," I said icily. That sent her storming out. A moment later, Gina walked in, and I felt a wave of relief. "You really pissed her off," Gina said with a grin. "She expects me to pay support from jail. Good luck with that," I replied. "How are you doing, Dad?" she asked. "I'm fine. How about you? Still not talking to your mom?" "Only when I have to," Gina admitted. "When are you getting out?" "I'm not apologizing to that judge unless he gives you back to me." "That's not happening, so I'll be here for 6 months. Gina nodded sadly. "Next month's my birthday. I'd love to celebrate with you, but don't go against your principles. We'll celebrate when you're out." Her words tore at me, but then she added something that caught me off guard. "If a man has no principles, he has nothing. As Lincoln said, important principles can and should be unbending." "Where did you hear that?" I asked. "My school counselor, Dr. Hodges. He's been great. Some teachers noticed my grades slipping and suggested I talk to him. It's helped with Mom, too, even if I still don't talk to her much. Wilmette's wealth showed in things like this. In a district like hers, even the school counselors had doctorates in psychology. "Well," I said, "your mom seems upset with you, too." "Yeah, she's getting on my nerves. I just ignore her. I think it makes things worse, but I don't care. In a couple of months, she'll have to start finding a new place to live," I said. "The bank won't let the jumbo loans sit unpaid for long. Her mansion will probably be foreclosed on within 3 months." "But Dad, if the house is foreclosed on, won't that hurt your reputation?" Gina asked, her brow furrowing. "Honey, when you pay for most things in cash, you don't worry about credit. That dumb mansion was the only thing I ever took a loan for." "Really? Wow, Dad. Even with all your leases and businesses, you've never taken out a loan?" "I use money from one to buy the next," I explained. Gina smiled warmly. "Daddy, I've always respected you, but now I respect you even more." "Thank you, dear," I said, smiling back. "You always know how to cheer me up." Spending time with my daughter was wonderful. I really wanted to see her more often. Missing her birthday would be tough for both of us, but I knew she'd be okay. She's a strong kid. The next week, I learned the security guard who touched me had been fired. It was hard to argue with video evidence showing I didn't even defend myself. A few days later, the other guard quit. I'm not sure if he was transferred or not, but at least he was gone. Several inmates thanked me for getting rid of the bad guard. I think I earned some respect. More people started calling me Tex, and I didn't have much trouble after that. The Sixes were still angry with me. I heard one of their wives filed for divorce, and 3 others were dumped by their girlfriends. Maybe even stupid people can learn. With the threat of more retaliation and my increased standing among the inmates, they realized it was better to leave me alone. A couple of weeks later, I got a subpoena to meet the judge via video. When the guard came to get me, I told him I wouldn't meet without my lawyer. "But the judge is waiting," he said. "I don't care. I want my lawyer. Reschedule it. My schedule's open." The guard hesitated, then walked off. 3 days later, they informed me the meeting was set for the following week. I requested 30 minutes with my lawyer beforehand, and they agreed. When we met, my lawyer said he hadn't been given any details about the meeting, which he found strange. "I guess we'll figure it out as we go." When the judge appeared on the video, it was clear he wasn't happy about the delay. I didn't care. To me, he was just another egotistical idiot who thought he was better than everyone because he wore a robe. My lawyer spoke first. "Your Honor, may I ask what this is about?" "We weren't given any information, just told to be here." The judge replied, "Your client didn't need you. I just wanted to see if he was willing to apologize to the court for his outburst." My lawyer glanced at me, and I motioned for him to lean closer. I whispered my response. "Your Honor," my lawyer said, "he's not willing to apologize and believes you owe him an apology. He also requests primary custody of the child." The judge looked stunned. "Why would I ask him to apologize?" "Of course he wouldn't do that. My custody decision stands, and I have no apology to make." "Then we're wasting time," my lawyer replied. "If my client changes his mind, we'll let the court know. Good day, sir." The judge stopped him. "One more thing." I braced myself, thinking, here comes the real reason for this meeting. "Your client isn't honoring the divorce decree," the judge said. "When does he plan to make the spousal support and mortgage payments?" My lawyer turned to me, and I whispered my reply. "Your Honor," my lawyer said, "he doesn't intend to make any payments while incarcerated." "But the house will be foreclosed on," the judge said. I responded bluntly, "It's not my house. Maybe my wife's mansion, but not mine. I never wanted it." The judge warned, "It will destroy your credit and cost you all your equity." "A small price to see my favorite ex-wife walking the streets where she belongs," I replied with a smirk. The judge's face hardened as I added, "Maybe her buddies can cover the payments. I'm sure they can pool their resources." I knew my words would enrage him, but I couldn't resist implying the judge and my wife had a personal connection. It worked. "You worthless Southside scum!" the judge spat. "Who do you think you're talking to?" Calmly, I interrupted. "I think I'm talking to the man who enjoyed my wife's company. If I'm wrong, I apologize. I just don't see why anyone uninvolved would care so much." Standing, I headed for the door. As the guard prepared to escort me back to my cell, I heard the judge shout, "Counselor, your client just earned 2 more months in jail. If he keeps disrespecting me, I'll make his life a living hell." I smiled, noticing the guard's shocked expression. He couldn't believe what I'd just done. Back in my cell, the realization hit me. My wife had been discussing the mortgage with her friends, and somehow that information had reached the judge. What a mess. but their time would come soon enough. The following Sunday, Lily couldn't resist visiting me in jail. Thankfully, Gina insisted on tagging along. "I heard you pissed off the judge again and got 2 more months in jail. When are you going to learn you can't fight the system, Lily?" she said. "Why don't you just talk to me anymore? All you're doing is trying to act out against the North Side." "I don't need that. All I care about is Gina visiting me regularly." She practically screamed, "It's Regina!" I turned away and stayed silent as Lily continued yelling. Eventually, she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Moments later, Gina walked in, her face glowing with a big smile. "Why are you so happy?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Because I'm going to see my daddy," she said brightly. "That can't be the only reason," I teased, leaning back in my chair. She grinned mischievously. "I have a surprise for you, but I can't tell you about it yet. I need to think it through first. Dad, do you trust me?" "With my life," I replied without hesitation. Her grin widened as she pulled a folded piece of paper from her pocket and held it out to me. "Then, will you sign this without reading it first?" I looked at her cautiously. "What are you up to, Gina?" "You'll find out soon enough," she said, her tone playful. "I thought you trusted me." Smiling at her confidence, I signed the paper as she carefully folded it to reveal only the signature line. "There," I said. "But you owe me an explanation later." She tucked the paper away and shifted the conversation. "Mom said you did something to get 2 more months added to your sentence. Is it true?" "Yes," I admitted. "And I'm sorry, darling." "What did you do?" she pressed. "I confronted the judge again." Gina smirked. "Well, whatever it was, he probably deserved it." We chatted for a while about school and her mom. She kept mentioning her school counselor, Dr. Alex Hodges, and speculating about what was going on. I tried steering the conversation back to her plans for the paper I'd signed, but she shook her head. "It's a surprise," she insisted. Before long, I shifted the subject again. "I'm sorry I won't be there for your 16th birthday," I said softly. "But the next time you visit, I'll have a present for you." Her eyes lit up. "What is it?" "It's a surprise," I said with a grin. "I guess we're both keeping secrets." As she stood to leave, I asked, "Can you do me a favor and ask Greg to visit me? I need to talk to him about something important." "Of course, Daddy," she said warmly before heading out. Greg had been my trusted point man for handling business matters before I went to jail. I'd left him with a few critical cases to manage, and now I had another task for him, a surprise birthday party for Gina. Later that week, Greg arrived for a visit. He gave me an update on everything I'd assigned him, and it was clear he'd been managing things well. Once we'd finished the usual business, I brought up my new request. "I want to throw Gina a surprise birthday party," I said. Greg looked at me skeptically. "Are you sure?" he asked. "Absolutely," I replied. "It's perfect for her." He nodded slowly. "All right, I'll make it happen." "All right, I'll talk to our lawyer," he said. "Also, I'll visit Ken and give him what you prepared. He'll know what to do. If he has questions, he can come to me. If not, I'll send him to Gummy." "Sounds good," I replied, grinning. Gummy knew how my mind worked and would handle things while I stayed guilt-free in jail. By the end of the month, my reputation among the inmates had soared. Word had spread fast, likely thanks to a guard sharing the story of how I stood up to the judge. In jail, news traveled as quickly as it did in any organization, and soon everyone was calling me Tex. Toward the end of the month, I had another visitor. Walking into the visitation room, I stopped short when I saw Lily. Annoyed, I turned to leave, but her voice stopped me. "Kurt, please wait, I need to talk to you," she said, her tone unusually earnest. I sighed and replied coldly, "I have nothing to say to you, Lily." She ignored my protest and pressed on. "We're going to lose the house. You have to give me money to stop the foreclosure." I stared at her, unflinching. "This is your house, Lily. I never wanted it. You nagged me until I gave in, and now it's nothing but a financial sinkhole. It means nothing to me. There's no equity left in this market anyway. Let the bank take it." Her voice cracked. "Kurt, you can't do this. You have to help me." I folded my arms. "Ask your friends for help. I'm sure they have plenty of money. Then you can fully embrace the role you've chosen." Tears filled her eyes. "Why are you doing this to me?" she cried. I didn't hold back. "Why did you lie to the judge and accuse me of maltreating our daughter?" Her face went pale, and for a moment she was completely still. Then as the weight of her actions hit her, tears streamed down her cheeks. Without another word, I turned and walked out, a sense of relief washing over me. As the guard escorted me back to my cell, he got a call on his radio. Take him back to visitation, came the instruction. Expecting to find Lily still crying, I was surprised when I walked in and saw Gina instead. "Gina," I said, startled. "Your mom didn't mention bringing you." "She didn't bring me," Gina said with a shrug. "I wouldn't let her come here without me." I smiled, grateful to see her. "I'm sorry I missed your birthday," I said, "but I have a gift for you." "Dad," she said, her voice soft. "I knew you'd miss it, and I don't care. I love you anyway. You don't have to get me anything." I smiled, pride swelling in my chest. What an amazing daughter I have, I thought. "I don't have the gift here," I said, "and it's not immediate, but I can tell you what it is. Gina, the house in Oak Forest is yours. It'll go into a trust for you when you turn 18. Her eyes widened with excitement. "When I get out of here," she asked eagerly, "can I stay there?" "Of course," I replied with a grin. "I'll even pay the rent." Her face lit up and a huge smile spread across her face. "Daddy, oh my God," she exclaimed. "You just removed a huge obstacle for my surprise. I still can't tell you what it is, but you'll understand when I do. I love you so much." "I love you too, honey," I said, my heart full as I watched her smile. I couldn't stop wondering what Gina's surprise could be. It had to involve our home, not the mansion, but our real home. We both smiled as we kept talking. She brought up Alex, her counselor, again. Was it possible she had a crush on him? I hoped he was professional and had no improper intentions toward her. I'd have to meet this Alex guy as soon as I got out of here. As I was escorted back to my cell, a huge grin spread across my face, partly from the verbal showdown with Lily, and partly from my uplifting talk with Gina. The other inmates were puzzled, as smiles in prison often meant someone had been hurt. One day, Gummy came to visit me. Everything was set. We had video evidence of my wife, some paralegals from her firm, some of them married, and courtesans, all being entertained by various lawyers at her firm, rising Democratic politicians, and a certain judge I knew well. They bragged about being untouchable and doing whatever they pleased. People often underestimate janitors. They come and go unnoticed. Offering free rent for a year was enough to convince one of them to install hidden cameras in the offices and conference rooms. I knew we'd gather enough dirt to upend some lives. My brother, acting anonymously, would post the videos online with the slogan, "Don't mess with Texas." They'd send them to key websites and every major news outlet and tabloid in the state. The media frenzy would turn these people's lives upside down as politicians and lawyers scrambled to contain the fallout. I smiled and told Gummy, "In a week, let the others know what to do next." "I will," he said. Walking back to my cell, I was grinning ear to ear. Ringer saw me and knew I had spoken to Gummy. "Holy crap," he muttered. I just nodded, my grin widening. When the tapes were released, I lay on my bunk, listening to the murmurs spreading through the prison. Somehow the news had even reached this grim corner of the world. I heard inmates start to say, "Don't mess with Texas." Not long after, one of the Sixes, the gang I had tangled with, entered my cell. He was a huge guy and seemed uneasy. "You're a bad fool," he admitted. "I'm sorry for what I did to you." Calmly, I replied, "I warned you all not to mess with me. Now more people regret crossing me. I respond to kindness with kindness and violence with violence. I hope you'll accept my apology." "Sure," he said. "But remember, just because you're big doesn't mean you can't hurt yourself." He nodded and walked out. 3 days later, I was summoned before the judge again. My lawyer had already been contacted and was on his way. We sat in the video room waiting for the connection. "Wonder what this is about," my lawyer said with a sly smile. "Time will tell," I replied, matching his smirk. When the judge appeared on screen, his eyes burned with rage. "You did it!" he shouted. "Did what?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "You're Tex, aren't you?" he bellowed. "Some people call me that," I said evenly. "You're going to pay for this," he yelled. "I've been in jail for 4 months. How could I have done anything?" I replied, unfazed. "You have friends." "We all have friends, Your Honor," I said with a touch of sarcasm. "You're not getting away with this," he spat. "I don't know, Judge. You might be out of a job soon. I hear your wife's divorcing you." "Call off your dogs," he demanded. "Calling my friends dogs? They might not appreciate that. Corner a dog and you might get bitten." "Is that a threat?" he asked. "No, just a saying," I replied. "I'll make your life a living hell. When you leave this filthy prison, you'd better watch your back. One day, someone will make you pay, and I'll be thrilled to see it happen." He abruptly ended the call. I turned to my lawyer. "Did you get that?" "Every word," he said, holding up his phone. "Perfect. The Bar Association will love this. Last I checked, intimidation is a crime in Illinois." A few days later, my wife showed up for another visit. The moment I saw her, my mood soured. "Oh, it's you," I said flatly. "I thought I made it clear I have nothing more to say to you." "You fool!" she yelled, her voice trembling with fury. "What now?" I asked calmly. "You got me fired. My picture is all over the news and the internet." "How could you do this to me?" she whined. "You did it to yourself," I said coldly. "Do you hate me that much?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Yeah, and your arrogant law buddies who think they're above everyone else," I replied, my words cutting. "When we first met, you were a sweet, small-town girl with a great personality. Now you're just a selfish, uptown witch." "What am I going to do?" she cried. "I don't have a job, and no one will hire me." I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. "Move back to Seymour and stay with your folks," I suggested. "I can't," she said. The local paper ran a headline, "Local Girl at Center of Chicago Scandal." "My parents are retiring early and moving to Florida to avoid the gossip." "Well, Florida sounds like the perfect place for you," I replied coldly. "Farther away from me." "They don't want me there. They barely even talk to me anymore." "Wow," I said, my voice heavy with mock surprise. "Your parents barely talk to you. Your daughter barely talks to you. Maybe the problem is you." She looked devastated but didn't reply. I continued, "I think you should move and start over, but don't even think about taking Gina with you. As soon as I'm out of here, I'll petition for primary custody. With your reputation, I'm pretty sure the court will rethink who's the better influence for a teenage girl." "You can't do that," she said desperately. "She's all I have left. Lily, I don't care. You did this to yourself. We had a good life, but then you decided to have fun with everyone." I paused, smirking. "Here's an idea. You could work as a strumpet for one of your lawyer buddies. I bet there's still a market for a nearly 40-year-old. She stared at me, tears streaming down her face, then broke down completely, resting her forehead on the table as she sobbed. "Sucks to be you," I said without a shred of sympathy. "Did you bring Gina?" She practically exploded. "It's Regina! And no, she's busy with that doctor friend of hers." "Well," I said, standing up, "then I've got nothing more to say to you. Don't bother coming back unless you bring Gina." I turned and walked away, leaving her sobbing at the table. For the first time, I didn't feel any satisfaction. Seeing her so broken left me strangely hollow. The next day, I saw the night report. A fire had gutted the top floor of a 5-story office building downtown. Thanks to the sprinkler system, the lower floors were spared, but the damage above was total. I just smiled. The following day, Ken told me that the law firm's external server had crashed, wiping out all their data. Again, I smiled. A couple of weeks later, Gina came to visit. She must have convinced her mom to bring her, but as soon as she walked into the room, I noticed the biggest smile I'd ever seen on her face. "Gina," I said, my mood instantly lifting. "You look so happy. What's going on?" "I finally finished my surprise for you," she exclaimed, her excitement bubbling over. "You'll never guess what it is," I chuckled. "Well, based on our last conversation, it's something to do with the Oak Forest house. Don't tell me you and your mom moved there. She'd live anywhere but there." "You're half right," she teased, her grin growing wider. I frowned slightly, trying to piece it together. "What do you mean?" "Mom's being evicted from the Wilmette house," she explained, "and I'm moving into the Oak Forest house." I blinked, taken aback. "How can you do that? The court gave her primary custody until you're of age." Gina's eyes sparkled with pride. "I'm legally an adult now." I stared at her, completely stunned. "Wait, what?" She grinned triumphantly. "I got emancipated. That's what Alex and I have been working on for the past 2 months. Once you put the house in trust, everything fell into place. I needed a stable place to live, and our old neighborhood is perfect for me." "So, let me get this straight," I said, still processing. "You're officially an adult now?" "Exactly," she said. "When things got rough at school, mostly because of issues at home, Dr. Hodges helped me work through it. Now, once you're out of here, you can come home. I'm excited to go back to high school in Oak Forest. I've already reconnected with old friends, and they can't wait for summer to end so school can start." "I heard you've been spending time with a counselor. I'd like to meet this Alex guy," I said, still suspicious of why he was so involved with her. "You're in luck," Gina said. "Alex brought me here today." My concern deepened. He was driving her around Chicago. I needed to tread carefully. I didn't want to upset Gina, but I also needed to make it clear to Alex that there were boundaries he shouldn't cross. When Gina returned, I was surprised. Instead of a man, a stunning woman with raven hair followed her in. She smiled warmly and asked, "How are you doing?" I studied her closely and said, "Freddie?" She smiled knowingly. I haven't heard that name in 20 years. Freddie, now Alexandria, was from my old neighborhood. She wasn't part of my gang, but we went to school together. Gina looked between us, clearly confused. "Daddy, how do you know Dr. Hodges?" Freddie, or Alex, answered. "We grew up in the same neighborhood, but he barely noticed me." Turning to Gina, I explained. "She was a couple of years behind me in school, and we didn't really hang out." "And you were a juvenile delinquent," she added with a smirk. "Looks like some things never change. You're in your 40s now, and you're still behind bars." My face flushed. "I've never been good at keeping my mouth shut." "Clearly," she teased. "I hear people call you Tex now, don't they?" "Why do you call him that?" Gina asked. "That was his nickname as a teenager," Alex explained. "He always got even when someone crossed him. Your mom did something terrible to him, and judging by the news about the law firm, I'm betting Tex had a hand in that." "I plead guilty," I said with a sly smile. Before we went further, Alex addressed me. "I hope you're okay with me spending time with Regina." "It's Gina," she corrected. "Right, Gina," Alex said. Then turning back to me, she continued. "When I started working with Gina about 9 months ago, she was deeply upset about everything happening in her life. I wondered if she was related to you and Ken, since D'Angelo isn't a common last name. When I found out her dad's name was Kurt, I still wasn't sure, until she mentioned you were in prison. Then I knew it had to be you. I felt awful, but I figured you must have turned things around since you had a house in Wilmette." "It's just a house. It was never home," I said flatly. Gina chimed in. "Our real home is in Oak Forest. South Side, but a much better area than where we grew up," Alex added. "Yeah," I said, feeling a twinge of regret. "If we'd stayed there, maybe things would have turned out differently." We all paused, lost in thought, before continuing the conversation. I pulled Freddie aside and said, "I really appreciate you taking time away from your family to help Gina. Thank you for guiding her through emancipation. It's made such a difference." "It's no problem, Tex. She's like family to me. I've grown really attached to her." "Thanks again. When I get out of here, we'll all go out to dinner," I said. "I'll hold you to that if you ever get out," she replied with a smile. The next 2 weeks passed uneventfully, just the usual grind of prison life. Gina and Freddie continued visiting me every Sunday, and I felt a sense of relief knowing Freddie was looking out for Gina. During one visit, Gina told me Alex had been helping her decorate the house, buying new furniture and decorations. Curious, I asked, "Where's the money coming from?" "From Uncle Ken, of course," she replied. "I've got money set aside for what I need." "Right," I said, nodding. I just wanted to make sure Freddie wasn't paying for anything. She's done so much for us already, but this is something I needed to handle. "Don't worry, Dad," Gina reassured me. "It's all taken care of." "I just hope it's not all girly stuff in there," I teased. "I'd like to feel at home too," she laughed. "Don't worry, your man cave is still a man cave." She was referring to the basement, which I had renovated into my personal retreat. Living in a house with 2 women had sometimes made me crave a private space, and that basement had been my sanctuary. After they left, I lay in my cell reflecting on how much Gina had grown. She was an adult now, taking control of her life. Soon she'd be off to college, and who knows where life would take her. I thought about what my life would look like after her departure, how I'd manage being alone, and whether I'd meet someone who appreciated life's simple pleasures. The following Monday, I had another visitor, Lily. The moment I saw her, I turned to leave. "Kurt, wait!" she called after me. "We need to talk." Reluctantly, I stopped and turned back. "What now?" I thought, bracing myself. "Do you know what our daughter did?" she asked, her tone accusatory. "What are you talking about, Lily?" I said warily. "She got emancipation," Lily exclaimed. "She doesn't have to live with us anymore. She's already moved out, and I don't know where she is." "Oh, that," I said, shrugging nonchalantly. "So you knew," she said, narrowing her eyes. "Did you encourage her to do it?" "No," I replied. "She did it herself, with help from her school counselor." "Is she staying with the counselor?" Lily pressed. "No, she's back home on the South Side." "What about school?" Lily demanded, her voice rising in frustration. "She'll return to Oak Forest in the fall," I said calmly. "She hated that school in Wilmette, Lily. They treated her like an outsider. A kid from the projects, as they called it. She never fit in with high society. You took her away from a school she loved, where she had good friends, and placed her in an environment that hurt her self-esteem. and gave her an inferiority complex. You caused more damage than good. I just wanted her to get a good education, Lily said defensively. Children learn more from their parents' example than they do in school, I countered. We were her first teachers about life. What lesson do you think your example has taught her? Lily hesitated before saying quietly, I hope it shows her what not to do. Our job as parents is to raise responsible, law-abiding adults. I hope we've done that, and that she'll forgive our mistakes, especially our failed marriage. It wasn't all bad, Lily said softly. No, but it ended that way. Lily, I hope you find what you're looking for. Clearly, I wasn't it. She looked at me, sadness and regret etched on her face. I stood, walked away from the table, and left. For a moment, I felt sorry for her again. The day of my release finally arrived, and this time, I was summoned to an actual courtroom. Gina, Freddie, and Lily were present. As I waited, I noticed it was a different judge. I wondered if the previous one had lost his position. The new judge reviewed my case before addressing me. Mr. D'Angelo, what do you have to say for yourself? I replied. I've served my original 6 months plus 2 more. You could have apologized and walked free, he said. I didn't believe the other judge deserved an apology, so I served my time, I stated. You are a stubborn man, he remarked. I prefer strong-willed. It served me well in business and life, I responded. The judge continued. The divorce agreement remains in effect. You must compensate for the months you didn't pay. My attorney intervened. Your Honor, my client is prepared to pay $20,000 today, which covers his obligations and closes all financial ties with his ex-wife. Lily immediately protested. What? He owes me more and must keep paying until Regina turns 18. The judge silenced her. Miss, I will handle this. Counselor, explain your calculations. My lawyer explained. My client covered the down payment for spousal support, mortgage, and insurance. He continued to pay for his daughter's insurance and needs throughout his incarceration, but could not pay spousal support or the mortgage due to lack of income. With the foreclosure on the house and the child's recent emancipation, spousal obligations ceased 3 months ago. The final amount owed is $19,782, which he will round up to $20,000. The judge reviewed the documentation and nodded. If these figures are accurate, I'll accept the payment. The judge addressed us both. You share a daughter, now legally an adult but still a teenager with needs. She deserves a stable, respectful environment. Can I count on you to remain civil? He looked at me first. Mr. D'Angelo? Yes, Your Honor, I replied. Then to Lily. Mrs. D'Angelo? Yes, Your Honor, she said. Finally, to our daughter. And you, Regina? It's Gina, Your Honor. Yes, she corrected. The judge concluded. If the evidence holds, this case will be closed. Mr. D'Angelo, you're free to go. Thank you, Your Honor, my attorney said. As we headed out, Gina ran to hug me tightly. Freddie smiled warmly, but across the room, Lily approached, visibly bitter. $20,000? That's all I get? She spat. Why did you choose them over me? They can help you, but what about me? Remembering the judge's plea for civility, I kept calm. Let's stay respectful for Gina's sake. It's Regina, Lily hissed. Our daughter, I corrected. Fine, she snapped. But I have no job, no home. What now? You can get another job, I said. For housing, I'll let you stay in one of my apartments, rent-free for 6 months to help you get back on your feet. Move back to the south side? She sneered. It's free rent, I said. Take it or leave it. She huffed and walked away. I turned to Gina and Freddie. Ready to go? Of course, they replied in unison. Freddie, I owe you a nice dinner, I said. How about RPM Italian? I booked it as soon as I got my release date. Lily's face twisted. RPM had been our place. Ignoring her, I added, the reservation's for 6:30. Want to take a drive first? I need to feel free again. Turning to Freddie, I asked, could your husband join us? Freddie's expression froze. Gina intervened. Daddy, she doesn't have a husband anymore. I'm sorry, Dr. Hodges. I didn't tell him. Confused, I glanced at Freddie's wedding ring. She explained softly, my husband died in a car accident 5 years ago. I never took off the rings. It feels like letting go of him completely. I'm so sorry. I had no idea, I said. It's okay, she replied, managing a small smile. I'd like to join you tonight. Dinner was amazing. Real clothes, good food, and freedom. As we left, I turned to Freddie. When you're ready, could I take you on a real date? No rush, just when it feels right. Freddie smiled. I'd like that. Gina grinned. Daddy, she's stuck with us. Freddie laughed. Wouldn't have it any other way. Later, when we arrived home, I was overwhelmed. The house was refreshed and welcoming. I broke down, tears streaming as Freddie whispered, "Welcome home." She removed her wedding rings, and we embraced. In the end, Gina gained a new mother figure and later twin siblings named Frederick and Alexis in Freddie's honor. Lily remarried a wealthy attorney who gave her the status she craved, but not the happiness. As for me, I finally found peace.